We start with a look at sulfur. I mentioned this in my last video about industrialization, and I want to show what it looks like at the beginning of the game. In 1836, this is sulfur consumption. We see it happening in France, Belgium, Germany's, England, and the USA. That's it. The rest of the world is not using sulfur. That means the rest of the world does not have fertilizers. It's not making explosives. None of that. It's not having fancy paper. It's not happening. Put another way, only in the nations that are currently using sulfur do we have the technology and the industry for those later developments. Everywhere else is going to have to build the capacity. If we look at where it's produced, the only places outside of those industrial nations or their colonies are Sicily here and Romania. And if we look at the potentials, if you don't already own one of those areas, these are the ones you're going to need to look for. And there's not a lot. All right, South America, yeah, it's got lots of the stuff. If you're Mexico, you're going to want to fight to hold on to California and Texas because that's all you're getting, kids. Austria has sulfur in a very rebellious part of Italy. And Russia has sulfur out here in the Transbaikal. Oh, wow. Now that's a big challenge. Russia has just the one province way out east, and if it wants to get more, probably the best bet is to plow down into Persia and take a slice of the Ottoman Empire, or conquer the rest of Poland, I don't know. But Russia is a tough one there. If we're going to get fertilizer or explosives as Russia, we're going to have to open up the east. And yes, this game is about industrializing Russia. I did one previously as Austria, getting that one industrialized and finding out what's needed to get things going. And now I want to apply those theories with Russia. Just reviewing Russia's literacy, it's terrible. Much worse than Austria, but not as bad as the Ottoman Empire. When we look at the GDPs of the big powers, Russia has a ratio of 1 GDP per 2 population, roughly. United Kingdom, 17 to 27. It's not 1 to 1, but it ain't 1 to 2. France is 23 and 34. They have even better GDP per capita. Austria is 17 and 34. They're in the same boat with Russia GDP-wise. Good job. They just read better. And the Ottoman Empire at 19 and 19.6, they're kind of in the same boat, but they're even worse. All right. I like being second place here. You look at the USA, though, 16.4, 15.7, that's just over 1 to 1. These guys have great GDP per person. That's why if you want to start off as the USA, there's very little you can do that makes you go wrong. Prussia's 9.5 to 13.7, they're close to the 1 to 1, and when they acquire the rest of Germany, they get there and then start to exceed it. China's at 95 and 36. That's almost 1 to 4. Ooh, that's bad. But yeah, Sweden's 1 to 1. We see a few others that are close to that 1 to 1. I'm not going to advocate conquering them, but maybe an enterprising young person such as yourself might want to go that route. No, instead, what I'm going to do is Russia. I'm going to try to get a lot more of these lines here for goods. We don't see steel, we don't see sulfur, we don't see explosives, we don't see fertilizer. I'm going to get those. But the way I'm going to get those, that's the trick. Politically, let's get the zhuz here incorporated. Let's deal with these Caucasian imamates and bring them in. And then we'll play the great game and get the rest of our Central Asia stuff brought over, because I'd like to have some Persia for dessert. That's the political goal. Economically, though, it's not going to be the way I did Austria. Austria, I spread the literacy around. I spread the development around. I did kind of focus on Austria and Bohemia, those two provinces. But like I said, I spread it around. Russia, it's too big for spreading around. I need to focus, and one great place to focus is the province of Moscow. This is going to be my special economic zone, where I target it for development. We're going to build out that construction sector. We're going to build out coal mines, logging camps, and iron mines, but logging camps in particular at first. In fact, logging camps anywhere I can, because by exporting wood, getting it out there is going to bring hard cash back into my economy. Playing as other countries with limited access to these kinds of resources, I didn't want to have trade deals because the trading partners would take everything. Russia is big. It's got lots of resources. It can export. It can ship this stuff out. I want those trade deals. I don't necessarily want to be part of a other country's market. No, no, no. I'm a great power. I'll have my own market. But I definitely want to be able to ship this stuff around the world and get money for it. Wood is one of the best places to start because there's not a lot of it in the world. AI tends to not build it, and I've got loads of the stuff. When we look at wood consumption around the world, wow, lots of it here in England, lots in China, lots everywhere. All right, let's look at production. Not a lot in England. Well, there's still lots in China. After all, they are the #1 producer. But I am so close. I could take that #1 spot. And when we look at potentials, oh yeah, I've got loads. Now, other countries may be focused on building up their industry and will be happy to import rather than build up their own local capacity. Looking at France, Austria, and Germany, they're going to have a hard time meeting their own wood quota just with what they have there. But as Russia, with the taiga that I have, oh wow, I can get lots of the stuff made. Yes, we're going to be making wood. Now, once we've got that wood built out, then we're going to be looking at getting more universities, more building capacity, things like that. And we're going to look at building out iron and coal here in Moscow and using those to build a steel industry. Keep it all local. That way we're going to have economies of not scale, but of proximity. The game rewards you if the goods are right there in the same state. And then once we build enough of them, those economies of scale multiply with the economies of proximity, and we wind up with a strong powerhouse state here in Moscow. It's got lots of people. In fact, can we take a look at the peasants? Here we go. Sort by peasants. We've got almost 1 million in Kursk, 855,000 in Kyiv, Moscow, 743,000. That's a pretty respectable peasant population. Let's work with that. But definitely these other states of Kursk, Kyiv, Kazan, Bryansk, Saratov, let's incorporate that bad boy, Samara, Tver, Orsha. These are, wow, great, large population states, and we can work with those peasants and get them working again. In fact, just scrolling down, wow, we have to go a long way before we get to someplace that's got less than 100,000 peasants, and that's in the Transbaikal. Well, guess what? We have to build sulfur there, so let's focus on that. But the rest of them, yeah, these are very small numbers indeed because the populations are much smaller out that way. We've got a massive population here in the center, and they are ready to get to work. We even get modifiers for logging industry throughput. Oh, yes. And we have agricultural stuff down here in Ukraine. So I'm guessing build a lot of wood up here in Moscow and then build my farms out here in the Ukraine area. Again, we've got to focus, make special economic zones. We can't build everywhere at once, so we're going to build in the places that make sense. Build in the places that have the best production possible for the stuff we want to do. Politically, we've got some issues with a lot of things. Schools, for example. I can build the universities, but they're not going to do me a lot of good if I don't have a good school system. And right now, they're all blocked off. My best bet is religious schools. That gives me the 10% education access, which is the same as public schools. Different numbers on assimilation and conversion, but still, that's a good deal. But to get there, I've got to have serfdom out of the way. Serfdom is heavily favored by the landowners and the church. So even if I get the church into government in order to get schools, they stand against any change here. So my hope would be that a movement for either tenant farmers or homesteading comes along, and that I've grown the economy enough to where when I make that conversion, because you look, it's a -20 drop for the landowners and it's a -15 drop for the Orthodox Church. I've got to get the economy doing so well that they're so happy with it that when we do make the change to homesteading or tenant farmers, it doesn't radicalize the actual governing bodies. So that's the political game. I've got to get rid of serfdom so I can get religious schools. Once I have those in place, we'll be able to build out our education and get people learning, and we'll do a lot better there. So as such, if I'm going to play that political game where we get the homesteading, I may want to not marginalize those intelligentsia. Let's stop suppressing them. There we go. Let them think. It's going to be disruptive, but the disruptions are going to be good. Bear in mind also that there's not a lot of historical flavor for Russia right now, so the change from serfdom to some other form is not going to be as fraught with as much difficulty as it was historically. Historically in Russia, it really was like emancipating slaves in places like Brazil or other places that had a high amount of slavery in their economy. Serfdom and slavery are very similar. And with the ending of serfdom, there was a huge upheaval in Russian culture. We don't see that here. We just click the button and suddenly the farmers are getting their act together and life goes on. So, yeah, we're going to not have that disruption. And I'm okay with that in this particular run. Once the local color is in, then that's going to be another battle to fight. But for right now, just like anybody else, let's get rid of serfdom, and then we can start educating our people. So economically, we're going to focus on the heartland, build those out, and then once those are built, we can start looking at other areas. We will have to get the sulfur out in Transbaikal. Politically, we're going to work on getting our religious guys in the government so we can start working on religious schools and other things like charity hospitals is another one we could get with them. That'll be nice. And hope for a movement to come along that when we're prosperous enough, we'll be able to make the switch off of serfdom. Now, the diplomatic game. I want trade deals with these emerging economies, Austria, Prussia, France, and the United Kingdom. I happen to have 1.49K in the diplomacy bank. We're going to send emissaries to the UK, to France, to Prussia, and to Austria. We're going to make them our friends. And whoever wants to sign a trade deal with us, let's do that. Having the trade deal means I could do the trades without having to have bureaucracy, even though they're far away. My bureaucracy is limited. I don't have a lot of paper right now. This is going to be a good thing. Let's get those trade deals. So diplomatically, make friends with everyone. What if somebody offers me an alliance? If it's France or the UK, I don't know. If it's Prussia or Austria, yeah, whichever one offers the alliance first, that's who I'll back. Because it means good relations with them, and good relations with them means they don't come knocking on my door to try to take my territory. Not that I'm expecting it to happen, but, well, maybe 80 years from now, something's going to come up and we're going to want those alliances to be in place to keep trouble from happening. Scientifically, just as we see a lack of entries here on the goods chart, we're going to see a lack of technology. Yeah, this is the full view here. And why are only a few of these lit up? Because we are not an advanced country. We still have to research level 1 technology before we can start getting a good deal on level 2 stuff. Now, the nice thing is, all the stuff we haven't researched, we're going to get knowledges spreading to us of ... And we're going to pick up a lot of these technologies as we research other things. So that's good news. But we're always going to be behind our neighbors in terms of actual development, unless we can do something amazing with this 15% literacy we have here. Militarily, we're really behind. We don't have general staff. We don't have percussion cap. Those are two things that really hold a military back. General staff gets you up to where you have skirmish infantry, and that's going to be the standard pretty much for most of the game. I would say at least the first half to 2/3 of the game, you're working with skirmish infantry. And if you don't have skirmish infantry, you're going to get your butt kicked in combat. Percussion cap means munitions plants. If we don't have munitions plants, we can't upgrade our military, because once you go over to skirmish infantry, you start consuming ammunition in a big way. You've got to have that ammunition ready to go, and you don't get it if you don't have percussion cap. But all of these are level 2 techs. We have to first clear our final level 1 tech before these get cheaper in terms of months to research. On the society side, oh, it's a mess. The biggest one is not having dialectics. That gives us the philosophy department for the university, which increases the amount of output that they have. And this, if I try to research it, it says 7 years, and that would mean on top of all the other research we'd have to do for these level 1 techs. So scientifically, we've got to clear the level 1 techs so we can get to some of these level 2 ones. Central Archives is another important society one that a lot of other countries take for granted because they already have it. They have filing cabinets. When we get our filing cabinets, we're going to see much better results in terms of taxation. I mean, I hover over this, it says unrealized tax is 68.5K. And as we develop, if we don't also develop our administration with that, we're going to see that tick up into the hundreds of thousands. So getting those central archives is going to be a big deal. So where do we start? Which tech is the most important? I'm going to say intensive agriculture. This gives us fertilizer plants and explosives. It gives us a reason to go after sulfur, and that's going to open the path to a lot of other things. It will also mean we can start using fertilizers on our farms and get better output for feeding our people. The next one I want to get is the atmospheric engine. This is going to make our mines more productive, and the Bessemer process to make our steel mills more productive. To get those, I'm going to pick lathe as my first tech to research. Let the other ones come to me when they do. We have got to focus on this stuff, the production methods. They are the most important for industrialization. Our country is big enough and our army, frankly, is strong enough that if anybody does try to attack us, we're okay with that. They're not going to get a lot. And again, chances are, with the amount of infamy it would take to grab one of our provinces and the lack of stuff that's in them, they're not going to want to grab those. The good stuff is going to be in the center of the country. That's what they're going to want to go after. And it's just too expensive to buy up all these other provinces with infamy in order to get at the good stuff. Yes, I am treating Poland and the Baltic countries as a massive buffer state. So, all right, we got our plans. Let's go ahead and see what it looks like. Let's fast forward a few years. And here we are. It's 1845. All right, almost 10 years. We got a few months away from that. And you can see a little bit of stuff has happened. Prussia and Austria have had their War of their Brothers. Can you see what Austria picked up here? They got Tyrol and Styria. And yes, I was allied with Prussia. They called me in as an ally. I showed up for the fight and helped them beat up Austria. I also showed up to help the French deal with one of their many revolutions. I'm on their good side. So yes, alliance with Prussia, rivalry with the Ottoman Empire, trade deals with France and Prussia. That's good stuff. France owes me the little obligation of Rooney. Don't know how I'm going to use that. Maybe increase the relationship with me so they don't get mad when I start conquering Persias. The Khedivate of Egypt has done a great job at weakening the Ottoman Empire. Thank you very much, Egypt, for doing that. I'm going to try to do the rest also after I finish invading Persia, because I'd love to have this strip here, all the way down to Basra. Ooh, that just looks so good. The Qing are having their little aristocratic revolt. Not yet the Heavenly Kingdom. That's still coming. And I got the mod that keeps Africa from being colonized. It's looking fine. Save some room for me, boys. When we look at that goods list, we see lots more entries here. Explosives, fertilizer, sulfur. Yeah, I did it. And I even got some steel. Oh yeah. As promised, the steel is being made here in Moscow, because that's also where I've been maxing out my iron mines. If we look at the wood production, I am now number one. The Qing have dropped way off, and the rest of the world isn't even trying. I may be short of wood at home, but I am shipping out loads to France, Prussia, Egypt. Oh yeah, baby, keep it coming. And this is my production. Ooh. When we look at sulfur production, Austria, they had to go after Venice in order to get their munitions industry going. And we got a little bit more here in Germany and Norway and Portugal. I see Mexico hasn't modernized to where they need sulfur yet. And I got my gang working here in Transbaikal. Good job, guys. When we look at fertilizer production, Moscow. Explosive production, Moscow. As promised, this is where my industry lies. Oh yeah, the tools workshop. Got them there as well. Got me a level 10 on construction. Haven't gotten around to building out more universities, only the 2 here in Moscow. But it's the 2 I started with, so we're good with that. I have my administration built out, and I'm building more, and we're working on getting those unrealized taxes realized. We did finish incorporating all these other things, and now we're ready to work on the rest of the globe. But this is a very promising start for Russia. We focused the economy in a key sector, put everything we had into it, and now we're ready to start building out in the other areas. We'll build this last explosives factory and a fertilizer plant in Moscow, and then we start expanding the government administration in areas that need it to boost up their tax revenue. Then we're going to work on building out our construction sector in Kazan. And once we have that, we build out more administration and logging camps there. Get some coal mines in Moscow because we need that eventually. And then we work on Tver because we're going to be logging in there. And we're going to be administering. And these cotton plantations in Kuban and Dagestan are left over from when I conquered those areas. I think I'll leave them there. So we're continuing with Operation Woodchop. And we're going to expand in Kazan and Tver next. We're doing good on grain, only slight shortage there. When we need to build more, though, we know where to put it. Way down south, in the land of rye, wheat, barley, wheat. There we go. It's not the land of cotton, because this is Russia, not some other part of the world. If I was going to industrialize any other country in the world, I believe I would follow the same pattern. Austria seems to be an outlier in that it does have a higher than normal literacy rate than the other really unindustrialized nations. But Russia seems to have a pattern that I would use for other ones. Focus the economy in places where you got people and get it built out fast. Russia and most of the other nations are lucky because no one's knocking on their door. When I eventually do that Ottoman Empire run, though, we know there is definitely somebody knocking on their door, and they knock early. So that's going to be a different set of tricks to pull off there. But for now, the Moscow, or no, the Moskvie. Sorry, I forgot. Moscow isn't Moscow in Russian, it's Moscow. Anyway, the point being, we're going to have fun with Russia in this run. So until next time, пока!